Kelechi and Adi's wedding was the talk of the city. Childhood friends turned lovers, their union symbolized hope and perseverance. Adis, dressed in a flowing ivory lace gown adorned with coral beads, held Kelechi's hand tightly as they exchanged vows. The celebration was grand, blending traditional Igbo customs with modern elegance. Under the glow of fairy lights, Kelechi promised her a life filled with love and honesty. However, behind Kelechi's warm smile lay a truth he dared not reveal. Tied to his success was a life left behind in his hometown of Obinze, a life he had tried to bury. His upbringing in a deeply traditional family had placed burdens on him that he could not simply discard. As they danced into the night, surrounded by well-wishers, Kelechi's mind drifted to Obinze, where secrets waited, whispering ominously like the harmattan winds. Their marital home was a modern apartment in Enugu, a city bustling with promise. Adis quickly turned the space into a warm haven, decorating it with vibrant artwork and traditional textiles that reminded her of home. She was the epitome of a supportive wife, cheering Kelechi on as his business ventures flourished. To her, life seemed perfect, a blend of their childhood dreams and the hard-earned rewards of adulthood. Kelechi, however, carried an invisible weight. His regular trips to Obinze, under the guise of attending to family obligations, were becoming harder to explain. Each visit confronted him with the life he had tried to compartmentalize. There, waiting patiently, was Amora, his first wife, and their two children, Yuzo and Chika. The arrangement, born out of cultural and familiar expectations, had seemed logical at the time. Now, it threatened to unravel everything he held dear. While Adis immersed herself in creating a blissful home, Kelechi's thoughts wandered more frequently to the secrets he guarded. He tried to push them aside, convincing himself that he could sustain the balance. But cracks had started to appear, small, almost imperceptible to Adis, but glaring to Kelechi. It was only a matter of time before his dual lives collided. The dusty streets of Obinze greeted Kelechi with a sense of dread. Amora stood at the doorway, her arms folded, her expression firm but expectant. "You've been away too long," she said, her voice tinged with both hurt and accusation. "I've been busy," Kelechi replied, avoiding her gaze as he stepped into the house. Yuzo and Chika ran to embrace him, their laughter momentarily lightening the heavy atmosphere. Kelechi hugged them tightly, guilt gnawing at him. He had missed their growth, the little milestones that fathers are meant to cherish. Amora watched silently, her frustration simmering beneath the surface. She had heard whispers of Kelechi's city life, whispers that hinted at another woman. Yet, she chose not to confront him directly, hoping that her silence would preserve what little stability they had. But each visit, each rushed goodbye, chipped away at her patience. Back in Enugu, Adis decided to investigate her husband's increasingly erratic behavior. She began with small steps, sorting through his office files, checking his travel itineraries, but Kelechi had covered his tracks well. Frustrated but determined, she confided in her best friend, Neka. "I can't shake this feeling that he's hiding something," Adis said, her voice low. "He's different, distant." Neka hesitated before responding. "Men have secrets, Adis, but you need to be sure before you act. Have you tried talking to him directly?" "I have, but he brushes it off," Adis replied, her frustration mounting. "There's something about his trips to Obinze. He's hiding something there." Determined to uncover the truth, Adis made a bold decision. She would follow Kelechi on his next trip, with or without his knowledge. The thought of deception unsettled her, but the growing distance between them left her no choice. Meanwhile, Kelechi, back from Obinze, felt the weight of his dual life pressing harder than ever. As he kissed Adis goodnight, he couldn't shake the fear that his carefully constructed world was on the brink of collapse. The following week, Kelechi announced another trip to Obinze. Adis, feigning acceptance, offered him a warm goodbye. But as his car disappeared down the highway, she wasted no time. She had rented a car the day before and followed him at a safe distance, her heart pounding with each passing mile. The journey to Obinze was long, and Addis used the time to brace herself for what she might uncover. The lush countryside slowly gave way to the familiar signs of a rural village. She parked her car just outside the town and proceeded on foot, staying hidden but close enough to see where Kelechi went. When she saw him pull into a modest compound and embrace a woman at the entrance, her world shattered. Children ran toward him, calling out "Papa," as he lifted them into his arms. Addis' legs felt weak. She slumped against a nearby tree, overwhelmed by the betrayal unraveling before her eyes. Addis waited until Kelechi returned home before confronting him. She sat in their living room, her expression cold and unreadable. Kelechi entered with his usual practice calm, but the moment he saw her face, he froze. "Who is she?" Addis asked, her voice trembling but firm. Kelechi's heart sank. He knew he had been caught. "Addis, I can explain," he began, but she cut him off. "Explain," she snapped. "You have another wife, Kelechi. Children. How could you?" The weight of his lies bore down on him. "It's not what you think," he said weakly, but Addis' piercing gaze made it clear she was beyond excuses. "I gave up everything for you, and this is how you repay me," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Do you even love me, or was I just part of your grand deception?" Kelechi sat silently as Addis' words tore through him. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he finally said, his voice heavy with regret. "Amora was arranged. My family, our culture, expected me to marry her. I had no choice." "No choice?" Addis retorted. "You had a choice when you married me, Kelechi. Or did you think I wouldn't find out?" Kelechi tried to explain the cultural pressures of being the eldest son in a traditional Igbo family. His parents had arranged his marriage to Amora to preserve family honor. Yet, despite his obligations, his love for Addis had driven him to lead a double life. "You've dishonored both of us," Addis said, rising to her feet. "I need time to think." She walked out, leaving Kelechi alone with his shame. Amora sensed that Kelechi's visits were becoming more strained. His affection for the children was evident, but his interactions with her were increasingly distant. One day, while tidying his belongings, she found a picture of Addis tucked into his wallet. The image filled her with rage and heartbreak. Confronting Kelechi during his next visit, she held up the picture. "Who is this woman?" she demanded. "She's my wife," Kelechi admitted quietly. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." Amora's world crumbled. "You married someone else? After everything we've built? After our children?" Kelechi tried to console Amora, but his words felt hollow. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said, his voice strained. But things became complicated. Amora spat, her anger rising. "You chose this, Kelechi. You chose to live a lie." Her words echoed in the small room, and Kelechi realized the full weight of the pain he had caused. Amora refused to speak to him for the rest of his visit. She retreated into silence, tending to Yuzo and Chika while carefully avoiding his presence. Kelechi could only watch, helpless, as the family he had built in Obinze began to unravel. Back in Enugu, Addis struggled to process the betrayal. Her once vibrant home now felt cold and alien. She confided in Neka, who offered support but urged her to think carefully about her next steps. "You have every right to leave him, Addis," Neka said, holding her friend's hand. "But you need to decide what's best for you. Don't let anger cloud your judgment." Addis nodded, though her heart was heavy. She couldn't ignore the love she still felt for Kelechi, but neither could she overlook his deception. Torn between her emotions and her principles, she resolved to confront her future with clarity. In Obinze, the tension between Kelechi and Amora reached a boiling point. Amora's silence broke one evening as they sat under the moonlit sky. "You've made your choice, Kelechi," she said quietly. "But I won't let our children suffer because of your mistakes." "What do you mean?" Kelechi asked, his voice laced with unease. "I mean you need to decide where your loyalties lie," Amora replied. "You can't keep living like this. It's unfair to everyone involved." Kelechi had no answer. His double life was crumbling, and he was powerless to stop it. The news of Kelechi's betrayal spread quickly in Obinze. Whispers turned into outright gossip, and soon everyone in the village seemed to have an opinion. The shame weighed heavily on Amora, who now found herself the subject of pity and scorn. In Enugu, Adis faced a different kind of scrutiny. Friends and acquaintances questioned how she hadn't noticed the signs earlier. "You're a strong woman," one of her colleagues said, trying to comfort her. "You'll get through this." But Adis didn't feel strong. She felt broken, betrayed, and lost. She began to question her sense of self, wondering if she had been blinded by her love for Kelechi. To regain her footing, she joined a support group for women who had experienced similar betrayals. There, she found solace in the stories of others and began to see a path forward. Amora, too, started to reclaim her independence. Using the money Kelechi sent, she opened a small shop selling traditional fabrics. The business quickly gained traction, providing her with a sense of purpose and a way to support her children without relying entirely on Kelechi. Meanwhile, Kelechi found himself increasingly isolated. Both women had distanced themselves from him, leaving him to confront the consequences of his actions alone. He began attending counseling sessions, hoping to understand and rectify his mistakes. One fateful day, Yuzo fell gravely ill. The situation forced Kelechi to prioritize his role as a father. He rushed to Obinze, bringing with him a sense of urgency and determination. The sight of his son lying weak in bed broke him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Amora allowed Kelechi to stay during this time, though their interactions remained strained. The shared concern for Yuzo's health bridged the gap between them, if only temporarily. For Kelechi, it was a sobering reminder of what truly mattered. The experience with Yuzo marked a turning point for Kelechi. He began to focus on being present for his children, visiting Obinze regularly and taking an active role in their upbringing. At the same time, he respected Adi's boundaries, supporting her from a distance as she pursued her dream of starting a fashion business. Years later, Kelechi looked back on his life with a mixture of regret and gratitude. Though his mistakes had cost him dearly, they had also taught him invaluable lessons. He remained single, dedicating his life to his children and ensuring they never felt the weight of his choices. Adi's fashion business thrived, and she became a respected entrepreneur in Enugu. Amora's shop also flourished, allowing her to provide a stable and loving home for Yuzo and Chika. Though their paths diverged, all three found peace in their own way, knowing that healing and growth were possible even after the deepest betrayals.